That's just 2 p.m. here in Berlin, Germany. The sun is almost coming out. And I would say that with that, let's get started. I have already shared my screen with you, and I would like to welcome you to this session where I will be talking about writing your thesis with MAXQDA. I will show you how you can use MAXQDA if you are currently in the process of writing your thesis, maybe your master's or your PhD thesis is the one that you are working on. And I hope that this session will provide you with a lot of input on what are the best tools to pick and how to go ahead with writing on this big piece of work. And this is a workflow session. That means this is a little bit different from the other sessions which we had, which were focusing more on a specific MaxQDA feature. So in this session, I would like to, instead of going deep into one feature, I would like to give you an overview of how a workflow with MaxQDA could look like. And I would like to show you how the different features can work together, what would be a typical workflow, or what would be a useful sequence of working with them. Of course, this is just one way to do things, and you might want to choose another route, but I wanted to put this session together to give you a sort of inspiration and example of what is one possible way to write a thesis with MaxQDA. And for that, I would like to show you 6 steps, and this is based on a blog article what we also published on our website, where you can also find an example of an actual thesis in the area of European ethnography, I think. Yes, and I also prepared a handout, and this handout is posted in the chat. Thank you, Hannah, for doing that, and it's pinned on the very top. So if you are interested in the notes I took and interested in this blog article, that's also linked in the handout. So I recommend you to go check that out. And the 6 steps what we will be talking about today is first collecting and importing your data. So how to assemble and how to keep everything together and organized in MaxQDA. Then we will talk about data exploration. We will take a look at ways to manually and also automatically explore themes in MaxQDA. We will talk about how auto-coding features can be used there. Then we will talk a little bit about developing research questions or a hypothesis. And for that, I will show you how to use the memos and the QTT feature. Then we will move on to data analysis. And here I will show you a little bit more about how to retrieve segments using the retrieve segments window, visualize data, and we will take a short look at variables and how you can use that for the basis of your retrievals as well. Again, we will not dive very deep into each individual features, but I would like to show you just a tidbit of each. And then we will talk about how to gather insights, where we will take a look at the QTT and how it can help you develop ideas. And we will also look at the creative coding tool. And then I will show you how you can report findings as well with using some of the reporting features. So this is what I planned. And without further ado, let's jump right into MaxQDA and see how a workflow can look like together. And I prepared an empty project. And let's go ahead and start with our first step, that is collecting and importing data. I think that is the first step of every research project, what you are doing. And in MaxQDA, you can work with many different data types, and you can also have different data types in each project. So it doesn't matter in every project. So it doesn't matter if you are working with text, if you collected some interviews, or if you have video data, if you have audio, or if you are working with survey data, you can collect them and have them all at one place here in your MaxQDA project. So here under the import tab, you can also find the dedicated import features that also gives you an idea of just a range of options what you have here. And you have a couple of couple of options when you would like to pull data in MAXQDA. You can, the easiest way is to drag and drop. And here I have 10 interviews, and I am working here with the work-life balance data set. That's the example data set that is available in MAXQDA if you right after you download the software. So again, just to show you very quickly, if you go to Open Project, Example Projects, here you can find the work-life balance data set, and this is where example project, and this is where where I took the data from as well. So here are 10 interviews, and here people are talking about how they can separate their work and home life. And I have collected them in the form of these are texts here, and these are Word documents. And if I would like to now import that in MAXQDA, I can very easily do that by simply drag and dropping, and then these will automatically import it and turn up here in my document system. I would recommend you to work with document groups so that you can have a better overview of how of your data, and then you can also navigate it, especially if you are working with larger data sets. I will just create a new document group, and we could call that these are our interviews, or we could pick any other way of organizations. If you are performing maybe multiple rounds of interviewing, maybe you would like to choose a temporal order and have group 1 and group 2 of your interviews. I will just group them all together and say that they are just my interviews. And you can very easily move documents in by simply drag and dropping them here into your group. By holding the Alt key, you can also highlight multiple documents at the same time, so it's easier to move them around. And just like that, I have all of my interviews organized here in my interview folder. Another layer of organization, what you can also use here, is to work with document colors. And they can have, if you right click on the document, you will find this option here. The default color is always blue, and this is the one which also doesn't show up. This can have multiple uses. You can use it either to reflect again the different different phases of your data collection, or maybe also different phases of your research. So what I also like doing is to say I leave the documents which I didn't look at yet blue, and I could say that the ones that I already looked at and already reviewed, I am setting them to green, so that I can also indicate, well, these are the interviews that I already looked at or that I already selected, and I am finished with them. I could also say that, well, I am picking yellow to show that these are the ones that are a work in progress, but you can really work with them in any creative ways that allows you to keep an overview of your data. We can not only work with text documents like my interviews here, but we can really get in all other data types as well. Let me just show you some other examples. So here, let's say I also have some secondary literature. I can also get that in by simply drag and dropping it here. And again, I can create a second I can also create a second document group to say that this is my secondary literature, and organize my literature data by drag and dropping. I can do the same with multimedia data, for example, with images as well. I can also get them in by drag and dropping. And as you can see, MAXQDA also automatically recognizes what kind of documents these are, so that we are talking about images, PDFs, and texts here. It gets a little bit more complicated when you have a more complex type of data that you would like to import. And for that, I would like to recommend you to work with the dedicated import features. So let's say you would like to import survey data, then it wouldn't be enough to simply drag and drop, for example, an Excel sheet in, because in that case, MAXQDA wouldn't recognize that you are working with survey data. It would just assume that you are importing a table. So for that, I would recommend you to use the dedicated features. So we have an example of a survey data set here as well, and we could pull that in by using the dedicated import feature and say that we would like to import this as a survey. And here you can also see why that's the case and why you should use the dedicated feature here, namely that in the case of a survey data set, and here it is how it differs from what we did before with the images and with the interview documents. Here we have a number of decisions to be made. Namely, we have to tell MAXQDA a couple of things, where to put it, if it should create a new document group or if it should put it into any of our existing groups. We should also tell it how to name the documents. So if we are working with survey data, the MAXQDA will split our Excel file up according to respondents, and we should also say MAXQDA how these documents should be named and where this information is contained. In this case, I have it in my response ID column. And more importantly, we should also let MAXQDA know which cells should be imported in as codes and which should be imported in as variables. So I have a couple of different questions here. I have closed and open-ended questions, and I would like to have the demographic information here about age, about relationship status, etc., as a variable. So I will pick that as one. And here MAXQDA already recognized that correctly, but I have the opportunity to change that as well, that I also have two open-ended questions, and these should be imported in as text documents. So I have the chance to review if everything is correct. I will also have a preview of all this data, and if I hit OK now, MAXQDA will let me know that it imported 55 new texts. And we can see that they got imported in our new document groups, which we could also rename if we want to indicate that this is our survey data set. So again, my tip for you, always make sure that when you are importing and gathering data, you are using the appropriate input features. Use drag and drop when you are working with simple data types, and when it is a more complex data set where decisions have to be made, then use the dedicated import features. So, and one last thing, you do not have to import every you do not have to import every data at once. So it's not like you have to import everything in and then you do your analysis. If you gather on the go, if you can import data in every step of a way. So if you collect data later on, you can always import new elements in MAXQDA as well. All right, with that, let's proceed and take a look at how we can start exploring our data. And we can, of course, do that in a manual way where we just, let's say, pick an interview and start reading that. And we could now take a look at see what our interview partner Anna is talking about here. So we can see that he first starts by describing us his typical workday. And we could then code that very easily by highlighting it and say we would like to now create a new code. And this code talks about typical workday. And we can also pick a color if we want to. We could add a code memo, and I would recommend you to use the memo and comment features very extensively, especially if you are in the data exploration phase and if you are creating codes inductively, because that can help you trace your analysis and just note why you are creating codes, how you are defining them, and it can help you to develop your code system. So let's just say that here we are adding a code definition for us to later remember why we added this code. And a code memo is something that lives directly on the code that is connected to the code, to the category itself, and the comment would be something that is located on the relationship between the code and the coded segment. So here we are defining our code, and here we can say why are we applying this code on this specific segment. So here we could say, well, he talks about different topics as well, or any other reason how we are explaining that. But we could also note if we are not entirely sure, not sure, maybe create a new subcode. So these could be our meta comments on ourselves for later on as well. And if I hit OK, you will see that we will have the code typical workday appearing here on the side along with the colorful coding stripe. And we will have the code appearing in the code system as well, along with some codes that were imported. These were created automatically when I imported the survey question. These are our open-ended questions as well. All right. So this would be a way to create codes manually, and we could then go and continue categorizing our data and to continue to apply this code. So maybe here our interview partner keeps on talking about his workday, and we could also give this code across different interviews and say, well, here is what Chris is telling us about his typical workday, and we could also create multiple codes. We could also create subcodes, etc. And another good way for initial coding is to use these highlighter tools. So these can be also used if you are not entirely sure what sort of code you would like to create, but maybe this is a quote that is interesting. Sorry. Let me just highlight that again. Oh, and it didn't want to apply that. All right, I did something wrong here. So let's just say this is something that is interesting and we would like to get back later on. So let's say this is something which we would like to revisit, but we are not entirely sure where it belongs to. All right, you can, every time when you are creating a code, you can also edit the comment if you double click on the coding stripe here next to your segment. So we could also add a comment later on and say, well, this is maybe a very good example what I would like to use maybe as a coding example later on. So we can also do that. And we can also make this process of data exploration faster by not only using manually created codes, but automatic codes as well. And for that, we have some auto-coding options. And one auto-coding option is to perform a text search and base and auto-code our search results. And that feature you can find under the analysis tab. And let's say we would like to search and code the what our interview partners are telling us about their friends. Then we could search for the term friend with an asterisk for friends as well, and say we are running this search. Oh, what am I doing here? Didn't I? So here it is. And then we would get the MAXQDA would search through our project, and we would get the results of where the term friend appears. And if we now hit on auto-coding, then MAXQDA will create a code to us automatically, and it will name us autocode so that we know how this code was created, and we can also differentiate it from our manually created codes, it will also give it a memo so that we know how and when this search was performed. And we can also decide what is it what we would like to code. Would we like to code only the search items, sentences, or the entire paragraph? And if we do that, MAXQDA will code through our search results and will let us know that it created 65 that it coded 65 new segments here. So this would be one of the ways to autocode our data set, but we could also, if we are not entirely sure what is it what we are looking for, what we would like to see, what are the terms that are emerging in our data set. So maybe I am interested in general, what are the most important themes that are coming up in my interviews. I could also create a word cloud, and I think that that is a very interesting tool to get an initial insight into what are the most frequently mentioned topics and what are mostly discussed. And let me just apply a stop list so that we can also get the relevant results. There are built-in stop lists in MAXQDA, but you can also download some from our website. And here we can see that, well, our interview partners are talking very often about work, about their friends, about how satisfied they are, about time. And if we right click on one of these results, we can also auto code directly from here, and we can create a new code that will bring us to the same window as just the same dialogue as what we've seen before. I would recommend you that you are using these features to just get a good overview. But of course, then go ahead and search the results of these auto codings and always manually prove them and differentiate the results further. And for that, one good feature what you could use, and let's try that out with our AutoCode friends here, is the smart coding tool. And that would allow us to look at each results that we can find under our codes so each results that were coded with our autocode friend, and then we could here in the smart coding tool read them through, and then we could decide, well, is this truly relevant to this concept? Is this truly a good is it truly in the good place here under this autocode, or would it be better if it would belong to another category? So we could recategorize that, and we could also create subcodes directly here, so we can also start and further differentiate this code. So we could, let's say here, our interview partners are talking about their friends, but we could also then say we are also interested in what they are doing with their friends, and we can see that they are going and doing some activities, they are doing some sports here. We could create a new code and categorize this. Go back here and categorize this this segment accordingly. We could see that this is actually not what our interview partner is saying, but this is a question. So maybe we would like to remove that. We could also do that here. So again, we could just go and sort through and reorganize our coded segments by using the smart coding tool. You can also find an entire session where Graham was talking about the smart coding tool and the creative coding tool. So if you are interested in that in more detail, I would recommend you to check that session out. And I would say that we should now move on and talk about our search step, developing a research question. And for that, let me move to the already coded example project so that I can I can show you what tools you can use here. And I would like to first recommend to work extensively with the memos features. And wherever you are in MAXQDA, you will always find some writing tools, and the memos feature is one of the most versatile writing tools that you can work with. And as you can see, you have a bunch of different sticky notes all over the project. Here we have some in document memos. We have some memos on our interviews. This contains all the interview questions, but we also have memos directly on the documents. For example, here we have a um, we have a note on our interview partner Riley, where I first explain how this interview took place, and then it also contains a document summary where we can also see a summary of this entire document that we can write after we have coded our data or after we have explored it further. And you can very easily create a memo. Let me show that how you can do it, for example, here in a document. And you can do it by highlighting a text and say you would like to insert a memo for this selection. And this is a free writing tool where you can write as long as you want to. We could also take some notes directly here on our interview and say they are talking about their evening routine. And maybe this is something what I would like to connect to the literature. And I can use some formatting tools here. I can also add labels, which I can define myself. So I could also say, well, this is something which talks to theory or to the language, but I could also say, well, instead of language, literature, literature is a more interesting category what I would like to use here, and then I could also tag my memo accordingly. I have also shown you how you can work with code memos. That there was one which we created before, and I would recommend you to work with code definitions, but also with coding examples that really help you to develop and reflect your code system later on in the process. And in the memos tab, you will also find the feature all memos, and that allows you to see an overview of all of your memos in your entire project. And you can also sort them according to different criteria. You can also sort them according to origin or according to their icon, and you can export that later on. So that's a good way to use that as a basis of your writing as well. And I also wanted to show you another very powerful writing feature that you can use to develop your research question, and that is the question, themes, and theories window. And here you can create multiple worksheets. There is a worksheet that is already created which talks about the sub question: how does the separation between work and free time contribute to cognitive well-being? And here you can collect important themes, segments, summaries, memos, visualization, concept maps. And the good thing is that you can write insights on all of these, so you can really reflect the elements of your research and the project elements in MAXQDA. And at the end, you will get an integration of insight tabs where you can also see all these reflections at one place. And you can easily create a new worksheet by simply clicking New Worksheet. Then you will get the chance to name that. Let's create one that talks about family. And I would like to ask the question here: what's the relationship between well-being and having a family? And I can also define my own research question here. So let's say, how does balancing work and family impacts well-being? And I would like to recommend you that you use this and you really think about how you fill this out, and that you also work with, and that you also use the chance to work with multiple worksheets. And my tip for you would be to break your research question down, create multiple worksheets, and to sort your elements according to these different research questions. Okay, let's proceed to our fourth step, that is analyzing our data. And for that, I would like to show you uh, two features. And one would be how to find the results of your codings. And I would recommend you to work with the retrieve segments window here. And you can very easily populate this window by using the logic of activation. And that's like setting a filter here. So let's say if we are interested in what our interview partner Arne told us about his work-life balance, his typical workday, then we could activate Arne, activate typical workday, and then we could see this is what he was saying about this topic. But of course, we could also activate all work-life balance codes to see what he was telling us about his education, friends and family, and the other topics that are mentioned here. And this is an interactive window, so if you click on one of these segments, we could always also see these quotes in their original context. And if you are working with variables as well, and I would recommend you to do so, then you can also use that as a basis of your activation. If you go to the Mixed Methods tab, you will find the feature Activate Documents by Variables. And here, let's say we are interested in what did our respondents without any children tell us about their typical workday. We could also activate those without any children. And if we can see that some of our respondents now turned red. So Riley, Matteo, Chris, Arne, and Amadi. And if we now activate typical workday, we could read what they told us about their typical workday. And don't forget that you can always continue working with these results. You could get that into the smart coding tool, what I showed earlier. You could code that with a new code, or you could even export them or print them out, maybe to use as a appendix for your thesis. All right, then let me show you some more examples, and then I will hurry up that we will have enough time for the questions. I can see that there are so many questions gathering in the chat already, so don't worry, I will get to that as well. But before, I would like to show you two of my favorite visual tools that I think are very nice to illustrate your work, but also to keep on analyzing your data. And one is the document portrait, which I think gives you a very good overview of what is said in a particular interview. So it gives you in our case, it gives you a visual representation of the sequence of the codes in a document. So here, for our example, Kazumi, we could see what are the themes, what she's mentioning, in which order is she mentioning it, and how long she's talking about it. So I think it's a very good way to get an impact on how the flow of an interview went. And another visual tool, what I want to show you, is the code matrix browser. And for that, let's just activate our work-life balance and work situation codes and our interview partners. And oh, I think I activated a bit more than I was meaning to. Let's just do it again. Here you are. This is what I wanted to show you. And This can create a matrix where we have our interview partners as columns and we have our interview topics as rows, and we can now see, and this again works for any other data type. So if you are doing the literature analysis part of your thesis, you could also create this for your literature, and you could also say, I wanna see the topics, how they are appearing here in my literature data. So this is by no means restricted to working with interview data. And here I can see how often my interview partners are talking about the specific topic. So I could see that Selim and Tan were talking 7 times about their friends and family. And if I double click on one of these, I can also read the appropriate segments here in our retrieve segments window. So I think that's a very good way to visually explore our already coded data. And let's talk very briefly about gathering insights and recording that. And about gathering insights, I think the main way to do that is to work extensively with the question, themes, and theories window. And I have already mentioned to you that you can create multiple sheets to talk about different sub-questions of your research. And you can very easily get here information by about different elements. So here we could add some of our codes that talk about here are the relationship between having a family and well-being. We could also get in important segments. Um, let's say I am interested in what my interview partners in Berlin are telling me about their friends and family. I could get that here in the retrieve segments window, and this looks much nicer if you have multiple screens, but I just wanted to show you how you can also use the retrieve segments window to populate the QTT tool. You could also drag and drop directly here. So if you are reviewing your results here in the QTT window, in the retrieve segments window, I would recommend you to have your QTT open in the background, collect the segments what interest you, and also start taking your notes on them. Okay, and let's just some brief notes on how you can then report it. I would here again advise you to work with the question, themes, and theories window, and you can export your entire worksheet as a Word document so that this can really be the result of this could really be the basis of your writing. Every visual tools what you created, you can always export as a graphic as well, so that you can also insert it directly into your thesis as a figure, or you can also use it in your appendix. And you can also find different reporting features here under the reports tab. And the last tool what I would like to recommend is the Smart Publisher. This allows you to report on selected codes and get a output as a Word document on a set of codes or your chosen codes, where you can also pre-structure this document where you will have an overview of the codes with the coded segments that it contains. So this was just a very fast run through on building your project from importing to reporting. And I would like to now get to the questions, which are sure there are many. And I will look at the questions here in the Q&A tab. And let me see. So Audrey is asking me how you can link an image with an interview data. And in MAXQDA, the logic is each document is its own case. So if you are, for example, working with variables, then you could assign variables to each of these documents. But you could also work with groups in a different way. And let's say you would like, if you would like to create a document group where you, let's say, have information on one respondent. So let's say here I am collecting information that is for Tan. That's not how she writes her name. I could say that here I have Tan's interview and I also have an image of Tan's. Then I could have that all together in its own document group. So that would be one possible way to have all this information together. You can, if you don't want to move the data around, you can also work with document sets. So I answered that one. Then the second question is, in regards to the memo associated with the code, can a person search all of the comments for not sure across all coded segments to go back and check the work? So you can see the coded segments if you, the comments on the coded segments that belong to one code. If you double click on the code, then in case, then you will get an overview of all coded segments, what it contains. And here in the first column, you will see all your comments. And you can then also sort that as well. So if it starts with no sure, they would then all open up in the same place. So I would recommend you to work this way. And in terms of searching, I am not entirely, yes, here it is. So if you just want to search for the term, not sure, you could also put it in here in the text search, and instead of choosing in the documents, choose that you are searching among your comments. Then you could also search through comments. And then Bill is asking, in the document browser, can I highlight all of one code? For example, I want to see that all text coded as autocode friend. So in the document browser, you have the chance to display codes, display coded segments in a code color. And then if I turn that on, I can see all codes displayed in their colors. And what I could also do here is I could activate now my code. Where is my auto code? I don't have it in this project, so let's just pick another one here, friends and family. And if I would now say I am only interested in displaying the activated codes, then I could only see highlighted friends and family, which I activated before. You could also activate more or less codes or a different one. And then it's more easier to find these coded segments throughout the document. Next question, how to rerun autocode searches for the new important document? Should we always have to make searches from scratch? So that's a very good question, and that's something what we are also discussing all over again. So that's something. So that's a very, very good question, and thank you for raising that. And when you are performing a text search and autocode based on that, then you are only working on the current state of your data set. And when you are importing a new document, then the autocodes are not applied automatically, but you do need to rerun your search. And for that, I would recommend you to, when you are running the search, to restrict your to activate the newly added documents and to restrict your search for the activated documents only, and then you will make sure that only the new documents will get auto-coded. But it will create a new code which you have to merge. Next question by Daria. I should say something more about the use of autocoding. Tell me please what will be more useful for autocoding created in the text search instrument or in MAXDICTIO with dictionaries. So Daria is asking me if she should work with the autocoding feature or if she should work with dictionaries. And that is a very good question, and it depends on the complexity of what you would like to autocode. So here, if you are creating a text search and you are, let's say, searching for, let's say you want to code the results when your interview partners are talking about their relationships. Then if I would be to search for relationship, then I could now go ahead and search for this term, and I could also add new terms and say I am now searching for relationship, I am searching for um, friends, I am searching for father, son, family, etc. So I can also define multiple terms just as in a dictionary. And if I run search, and I could also define if I am searching for either or if I am searching for both of these terms. And then uh, I could code all the results as a one uh, under one autocode. But here at the end, I can only code the results with one code. But if I want to work with multiple codes at once, then I would advise you to work with dictionaries, because here you can define multiple categories. And I could say I would like to have a category that is relationship, and here I am defining my search items, but I could also add a second one, and I could also say that I am also looking for time management. And then I could also go ahead and start adding new elements and say I am looking for when people are talking about being on time, being late, being tired, etc. And then I would like to code that under time management. And if I would then go ahead and auto code with my dictionary, which I can also find under the MAXDICTIO tool, then I could not only create the new auto code relationships, but now I could also create time management as well. So it again depends on what you are trying to accomplish. If you have multiple autocodes that you would like to create, then go ahead and work with the dictionaries I recommend. Then Ali is asking me, is there a way to update autocodes when I add new data? I think it's the same question as Carolina that I have already answered before. So let me just move on for the sake of time. Then I have a question on whether or not the session will be recorded. Yes, the session will be recorded and you will be able to view it later. You will be able to view it here in Hopin until mid-April. And after that, you will be able to view the session in our YouTube channel. So you can for sure rewatch it later on as well. Then Salva is asking me on how to create a worksheet. And you can create the worksheet under the question themes and theories tool, which you can find here in the tab analysis. And by clicking on new worksheet, this is how you can create a new worksheet. And you can switch back and forth between your worksheets by going to my worksheets. This project contains two worksheets, one on cognitive well-being and one on family. Then Hiroyuki is asking me, when a lot of papers and data are in MAXQDA, for example, more than 100 papers, MAXQDA is running slower. How do you handle this? Um, there are multiple ways to make the performance of MAXQDA better, and there is no upper limit on how many papers or how large of a data set you can have in MAXQDA, but this is something that highly depends on your computer. So be sure that your computer also has the system requirements. Those are also listed on our website. And if you have that, then another thing what you could check is that you are not embedding big documents. So let's say you are working with the research papers, and those are mostly PDF files. And PDF files can get pretty bulky. And if you are having hundreds of them, that might be an issue. And a way to deal with that is to have them not directly embedded in your MAXQDA project, but to have them as external files. And you can define uh, what the size of the files should be that should not be embedded anymore in MAXQDA. So here in the settings, you can find this option. Do not embed if larger than and here you can provide a number in megabytes. And I would suggest you that if you have a lot of PDFs, that you set this number smaller, and then you will have your PDFs not directly in your MAXQDA project, but as external documents. So they will only be linked to your MAXQDA project, but not directly embedded. You will still be able to view and code them here in MAXQDA, but it will be just not saved in the same file. So that is what can help you to improve the I don't want to apply that can help you to improve performance. Next question. Ali is asking me, is there a way to link photographs to interview transcripts or embed them at the end of the transcript? You can work with grouping them together, as I have shown that earlier, but you can also, if you want that, but I would encourage you to really think if that makes sense methodologically. But if it makes sense for your analysis, you can also copy and paste that later on in your interviews. You can also switch the edit mode on for that. And you could also just embed an image here. But I would recommend you to think about that if you really want to do that, and because that might be an issue when you are working with text-based analysis later on, when you are looking for in what section a term appears across your interviews, and you are comparing different text documents together. That might be an issue if you have images scattered around, because that would move the sections of your text around. So you can embed it in the text transcript, but really think about it if you want to do that. I'm not sure that that's the best way to mix data types, but theoretically you could do that. Then Hiroyuki is asking me, where can you see the summaries of insights of your worksheets? And that is a question relating to the question themes and theories module. And that's the last tab. Here is the integration of insights. There are no insights in this worksheet, but here is another one. So here are the different tabs which you can switch back and forth between, and you can you can see all these insights at one place, and then you can create an integration of insights. You can then have a meta reflection of all these different notes that you took. Then Hayat is asking me, can you please repeat step 3, how to get themes coded and segments? And for the sake of time, I can't repeat that to you anymore, but I would like to recommend you to rewatch the session. The recording of the session will be available later on. And sorry if I was moving too fast there. I really just wanted to show you some ways, but I didn't want to go in some ways to work with different features. But of course, that went very fast, and I didn't talk about how to work with every of these features in detail. Then Ray is saying, when I export retrieve segments into Word, Word displays the retrieved segments in the same font as the original document. This wide range of font types and sizes results in a messy looking Word document. Is there a way to get MAXQDA to apply a standardized and consistent font to export the retrieved segments? And I think indeed there is, but let me think about that. And that is something that applies to new documents in MAXQDA, what you are creating. Let me just think about, you are looking for doing that in the retrieve segments window, right? I'm afraid I don't know that by the top of my heart, but write me a private message, and then I can see what I can find out. I am not entirely sure how you can do that on the top of my head. Sorry. Yes, videos will be available. And that's the next question again. So the video will be available here in Hopin until mid-April, and after that on our YouTube channel. Then Birgit is asking me, is there a way to highlight text in a coded segment without coding it? You can't simply just highlight text in the, or actually, let me just see. No, I don't think that you can do it. So you can edit text if you would like to, and here you can change the formatting and, for example, change the font color, or you could also underline that, and you can't highlight here, but you can highlight by using the highlighter colors, but then this will also turn up here in your code system. And I would recommend you to actually work with them because they are very useful if you would like to find your highlights later on. So I would actually recommend you to try and give it a shot with highlighting with the codes so that they are here in your code system as well, because that allows you to later go back and find everything which you highlighted as red, for example. Okay, so many more questions. So in 3 minutes, the session, as we got the announcement, the session of Stefan is starting in the MAXQDA press booth. So I would like to just give a chance to everybody who want to hop over there to do so. But I will stick around for another few minutes here to answer the rest of the questions. So thank you again to everyone for joining us, and thank you very much for listening to me. I hope this was a helpful session for your research, and I wish you a good luck in writing your thesis. I will stick around and answer the rest of the questions. So the next question is by Daniela, and she is asking me, can I use the visualizations I exported when printing the dissertation legally? These visualizations are your intellectual property. You created them. So of course you can also use that in your work, and you can use it in the printed version of your dissertation as well. Then the next question is, when I make a new version of a report, for example, after adding a new document to the database, is there an option in MAXQDA to show the difference between the two versions? So you are adding a new document and you are then interested in looking at the differences between two documents. You could compare two documents between each other according to different criteria. So you could use any of the retrieval tools to see what was coded in one, what was coded in the other one, or you could also create, let's say, two document portraits to compare them between each other. So if the coding changed, so there are a couple of options there to just use the comparative tools what you would use otherwise to compare two documents here. So that could also be a new and an old document, and a new and an old version of the same document as well. Then Laura is asking me, we can import dictionaries for the project for the sake of automatically coding multiple codes. How should we set this database up? So this is a question about dictionaries and how to set up dictionaries. So you can either set dictionaries up directly here in MAXQDA. You can also define them as global so that they can be applied across different MAXQDA projects. And you also have the option to add a dictionary or to import it. And you can find more information on what the structure of these files should look like that you can import in our manual. And every time when you are not sure how a feature works, I would recommend you to click on these help buttons, because that will take you to the appropriate place in our online manual. And here you can then read about managing dictionaries. And I think that we will also learn here how we can import. So we can learn how. Mhm. So this is then an example of how the formatting should look like if you are importing a dictionary, and here Excel is recommended to create that. So this would be the formatting that your Excel sheet has to have in order for MaxQDA to recognize that when you are importing it as a dictionary. I will put this link in the chat for you. Is there a QTT? Then Laura is also asking if there is a QTT in MaxQDA 2018. No, the QTT tool is a new tool that is only available in the newest version of MaxQDA, MaxQDA 2022. So there is no version of that in MaxQDA 18. Then Dominga is asking me if I want to do another cycle, is there a way to turn the visibility of subcodes, turn it off from the first cycle? So you would like to code in 2 rounds, and then uh, you would like to not to display some code. So what you could do here is you could work with multiple parent codes. So you could categorize some codes together, and then you can simply hide them by clicking on these arrows. Then you can focus on only one group of one set of subcodes here of one parent code on the top of your code system. And if you would like to, you can also say that you only want to display codes that are activated here, and then you could hide the other codes what are not activated in your document browser as well. And then Susanna is interested in my email address. Yes, so you can reach out to me if you go to our you can find my training profile in the handout. I think I linked it there. I hope I linked it there. And you can always write to me at tamara.pataki at maxqda.de as well. So if you would like to shoot me an email, this is where you can reach me, And you can also write me a direct message here on the conference platform, and I will also make sure to address that. I hope with that I answered all of your questions. I have went through the entire Q&A section. I hope that you enjoyed the session and you had a great time. I wish you a wonderful rest of the conference and see you around. Bye bye.